this week's episode of Erased, Satoru Fujinuma is still trapped in 1988 due to the phenomenon known as revival. He continues to try and solve the mysterious murders of 3 of his classmates. Ladies and gentlemen, this week's episode is such a raw, intense display of emotions. The first half of the episode is going to make you feel sick to your stomach, while the end of the episode is going to kick you directly in the feels and might even make you shed a tear or two. There is no reason why I should care this much about fictionalized anime 10-year-olds, but I am totally along for the ride. This series has some amazingly sharp writing and some incredible atmosphere, which is going to suck you directly into the story. And this week's episode had some pretty major revelations for the story. First and foremost, we just get to see a little bit more of Satoru's lifestyle at school, where, very much like Hinazuki, he's seen as something of an outcast, but Hinazuki is just completely berated by everyone. All of her classmates, in particular, that one bitch girl who I think is the one who actually planted all of the school lunch money in Hinazuki's desk. There's also a scene at the beginning of the episode which is in many ways kind of an exact replay of what happened to Satoru when he was a kid. They were having this race out on the ice, and it looked like he was actually about to win against this kid who's like the ultimate hockey player, and he sort of doubted himself at the end, and he decided to let him win. And he promises Kaio Hinazuki that he's going to go as fast as he can, and he's going to try his best. What's really strange is that this is one of those scenes where this actually happened during his childhood, and this is an opportunity for him to sort of change these events, but they actually end up playing exactly the same, with him slightly doubting himself and allowing this other kid to win, who has a really bad attitude about winning. Basically, this episode does a really great job of making you hate all of Satoru's classmates, because they are completely against everything that Satoru is doing, and they are completely against Hinazuki as well. Which, like I said, when they actually display her family life in this episode, it's just straight up messed up. You know exactly why she never wants to go home. Not only is she beaten mercilessly by her mother, but she's basically tossed in this dark, locked up tool shed in the middle of a snowy season, just completely left to basically suffer herself. And when all that's done, she's brought back to her home, and her mother literally tries to drown her in the sink with ice water repeatedly. It's so incredibly disturbing, and like I said, that's what the first half of the episode is pretty much all about, just how bad Hinazuki's life actually is. The second half of the episode, however, is where they're going to take the rug from underneath you, pull it out from under your feet, and try to kick you directly in the feels. In this scene, which almost brought tears to my eyes, and I know that people who are really sensitive to this type of storytelling are definitely going to be affected by this scene. What's really strange about it is that Satoru himself is kind of an antisocial character. He has a lot of trouble with talking to people and sort of displaying his real personality, but by going back in time and being able to sort of relive his childhood, he's in many ways sort of coming out of his shell, which I think is really amazing, as well as trying to connect with Kaio Hinazuki as well, and that's of course because he's trying to prevent her murder. So, in order to make her feel better, they decide they're going to go see a Christmas tree. And my first thought when I heard this was, well, it's February, so I'm not really sure where this logic is coming from, but really it's just basically this big attempt to try and make her feel something other than being hated by everyone. And they go up into the mountains, and it's this beautiful scene where they encounter these 2 foxes, and this is actually something that Satoru mentioned himself. Whenever he would go up and play in the mountains, he always mentioned that these foxes would come and see him, and they have this chance encounter with him, and then suddenly they're in front of this just amazingly pristine tree, which is basically just a tree with all of its leaves gone, but that combined with the aurora borealis in the sky, and of course all of the icicles, just make the scene look beautiful. The camera sweeps are great, and we also get Kaio smiling for real for the very first time, and that scene, guys, just kicked me right in the gut. I don't know what it was, but it made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time in anime, and it's a testament to the writing of this series. I've said it previous in my other reviews of this series that this is not the type of show that I typically watch. Everybody who knows me personally knows that I'm really into action and all that stuff, and this series pretty much has none of that. What it does have, however, is some amazing writing, and it's one of those series that I think every anime fan really needs to check out. It might affect you in a number of different ways. Not to mention there's these other little plot points which are picking up in the episode. The biggest one, of course, is that Satoru has actually pinpointed when Kaio Hinazuki is going to be killed, because apparently her birthday is on the same day as him, and it happened in between that date and their birthday. So basically, he's going to have to follow her like a stalker just about every single day to make sure that she's not going to be killed. In fact, the other two people who are killed back in the day, one of them happens to be one of Satoru's friends, Hiromi, who is a very effeminate male character. Yes, apparently he is male, and I'm sure he's going to have to try and prevent those as well. It's weird that he's not thinking about them as much, but of course Kaio is really the main star of this series. That, combined with her tumultuous lifestyle with her family, really makes you care about this character quite a bit, because it's amazing that they could take this incredibly emotionless, almost deadened character and have them display that type of emotion by the end of the episode. Frankly, my friends, it's absolutely beautiful. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Erased? Another fantastic episode with some very sharp writing, which is just, it's one of those shows where, like, you watch it and it feels like 5 minutes have just passed, because you're so sucked into the story and what the characters are going through. Not to mention, they're also following up on the other characters, like that one killer who was Satoru's friend, the 23-year-old guy. He was the one who originally was arrested and blamed for all of these murders, and getting to see a little bit more of his life is very interesting. The fact that he works directly with his father, and you really get to see like how basically they took all of the evidence with him and the fact that he was also kind of like an antisocial being and sort of like put all the blame on him. It really shows that basically the police force, not just in Japan but all over the world, they're basically constantly looking for a scapegoat, someone that they can blame and basically put on a cross, and that's what that character was. Now, the other thing about this episode, of course, the thing that I think most people are going to be affected by is the whole scene where Hinazuki is being beaten by her mother. The scene was frankly kind of hard to watch. It was very disturbing and incredibly realistic, and it pulled no punches. And this is, again, another one of those series that it's more grounded in realism, despite the fact that there is this time-traveling sci-fi element. Nobody has fantastical powers. Nobody can frickin' shoot Kamehamehas or throw Rasengans or anything like that. It's completely based in reality, and that sort of makes you get sucked into the story all the bit more. Not to mention, like I said, the atmosphere of the series is probably the strongest element. Just the fact that it's set in, winter sort of gives it this extreme, somber tone. It almost seems like the snow plays a really big role in, like, how the scenes are going to play out. Like, when the clouds are gone, everything is nice. When everything's bad, everything's really dark. The clouds are in the sky. The snow is really heavy. The series does a great job of adding some atmosphere to the series. Not to mention the characters are incredibly believable, especially the children characters, which at first could come across as incredibly annoying. But at the end of the day, they're actually surprisingly realistic portrayals of what kids are like at that age, with some of them being complete and total dickheads, especially that girl who tried to put all of the blame on Hinazuki, as well as all the other students who are getting involved with that. They just figured that since she's poor, she was the one who was actually stealing the money. And to be fair, I really want to know what was happening as well, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is watching Satoru interact with her and try to figure out how she's going to be killed and how all of this is going to go down. There's also this whole other subplot with the teacher who seems to be giving out information a little too easily. I think that's just a little strange. He's also communicating with Satoru's classmate at the very end of the episode, the one who's incredibly smart. And like I said, I think he might actually kind of know what's going on. Maybe he does. He clearly senses that something is not quite right. I don't know if he knows that, like, his friend just traveled back in time or anything. It's probably not that ridiculous. But I am expecting a twist of some kind with this series. That being said, this is an amazingly atmospheric mystery sci-fi series, which you should definitely check out if you are strictly an anime fan, period. I think it's going to be one of the bigger hits of the year. It kind of gives me that sort of Death Parade vibe, kind of like that Terror and Resonance feel. It's more grounded in realism, but like I said, every once in a while, this is the type of series that takes its anime format and adapts it to real life, and it does a really great job of doing that. Technical side of things, like I said, the series looks great. The character designs are fantastic and incredibly distinct from one another. This is just an amazingly well-done series. I'm totally sucked into the writing, and I can't wait to see how it's going to conclude and how the characters are going to grow. I imagine it's probably not going to end all that well, all that hunky-dory. There's probably going to be another big twist for the series, but we're just going to have to keep watching. So I highly recommend Erased. You should definitely check it out. I'm giving this week's episode another 5 out of 5. I wish every anime could have production like this in writing, but it's just not the case. What I will say is, if you did watch this week's episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Are you new to the Erased series? Have you read the manga version, which apparently is going to be concluding very soon, along with the anime version, or are you just tuning in for the anime version of the show? What do you want to see from the rest? Do you have any theories about who the real killer might be? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!